alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters at ISB and ISBCC. Welcome to the ISB Community Voice. Um, 6 months ago, when the quarantine started, we had our guest, Dr. Chris Willard, and hereby time flies, and we are having him again on a different topic. 6 months ago, when we interviewed him, it was like how to preserve our mental wellness during this COVID thing, the quarantine. It was a new thing for us. But right now, we need to interview him again. Lots of house, lots of what's going on regarding our kids and children going online and all this working from home, homeschooling, or even like sending them to schools, and how to manage this stress at the family level if we are quarantine or non-quarantine together, while seeing them doing this online thing, online studying, online schooling, with all the challenges that comes with this online schooling. If you're a single mom, single dad, if even a whole family sitting together, working from home, and at the same time you have a meeting, and at the same time you have to follow up with your kids, going into this Google rooms and uploading assignments and doing homework. At the same time, your manager is calling you, say that's what's going on. I need this. This is if you are really having a job. So I'm throwing all this, Dr. But that's
I gotta solve all of this.
yeah, you're laughing like this is going to be entertaining. This is going to be interesting. Dr. Chris Wall is a clinical psychologist and education consultant in the Boston area. He's the author of The Child Mind, Growing Up Mindful, and a dozen of other books. He lectures on the topic of mindfulness and meditation with young people in the United States, Europe, Asia, and holds teaching appointments at Harvard Medical School. With that, please, Dr. Chris, thank you for being with us today. We need you. We need to hear from you. Lots of what's going on and lots of how can we overcome that. That's the guidance that you gave us 5 months ago. So let's start with this. You know that this is a common challenge, I would say, right now with the homeschooling is the lack of motivation for the kids. Previously, we used to outsource our kids' motivation to their teachers over there. So they used to take care of that, and they come like they engaged, they learn something in the classroom, they have fun, and they learn at the same time. Right now, we are not equipped, but we have to do the job. Like we have to keep them engaged, we have to keep them motivated, and at the same time, keeping our eyes on the goal, which is their education level. So, how can we engage and motivate our kids, telling them, hey, this is your computer, and this is your bed next to your computer, and this is your play area next to your bed, next to your computer. How can you give them motivation?
Yeah, this is I think is such a challenging one, and I know back in March when everything started to fall apart. I guess I forgot to add to my bio. I'm also a dad. I've got a 6-year-old and I've got a 2.5-year-old, and I'm also working from home and living this along with all of the listeners out there too. And this, back in March, we thought it was going to be a few weeks, right? We're like, okay, we can do this. This will be different, right? My son was just learning to read, and we were reading with him every day, and he was excited to do it and read his first sentence. And then it was, oh, it's not going to be a few weeks. It's going to be a month, and it's going to be another month. And okay, we're just not going to go back to school this spring. And I think everyone's motivation started to fall apart. I mean, certainly my son's motivation fell apart, right? Doing the online school that was happening was really hard to get him. Doing work outside of school was incredibly hard. Getting him back interested in reading was a real challenge for our family. And I think, also for us adults, staying motivated around our work, right, is a challenge. Sometimes I have to admit it can feel like an escape a little bit too. So we can be motivated to get away a little bit from the kids and get a break, right? But I think we're all struggling with a lack of motivation. I see teens struggling in different ways than younger kids. The good news is, I think in a lot of ways, younger kids, they'll mostly be okay if they are not learning. I think a lot of kids in general will be okay if they're not learning, like names and dates and facts and figures. That stuff, it's actually a problem with our education system. They'll be able to learn that anyway. They'll Google it when they're older, right? But learning how to learn is more what concerns me with getting them motivated, right? Learning how to read, learning math, some of those basics that, they do really have to do. So I think some of it's prioritizing, right? What we care about, what we can get the kids to care about. What's happened now in the fall, of course, is that kids who are back to school online, it's a long day, right? 8 to 2, 8 to 1, 8 to 3, right? Depending on your kids, your district. And that motivation is down. It's down across the board. From, I was talking to college kids today, their motivation is down, high school, middle school, elementary school, and all of that. I think we can set an example. I think when we're working from home, one thing I've found that helps a little bit, and there's no magic bullet here, but is working with my son. Like, he gets out his laptop, I get out my laptop, right? I do a lot of writing in my work, right? I'm not seeing patients with my son next to me, right? But we're both kind of doing our work together. So I'm modeling it, and that helps a little bit. I'm modeling doing it without getting distracted. I think for those older kids, I think that can be helpful when their temptation is like, jump on Facebook or TikTok, or I can't even keep up anymore, right? Or their phone,
Yeah.
or texting their friends, right? That kind of thing is hard. So showing that we're motivated, and then maybe putting in some rewards, making it fun, trying to if we're around a little bit with younger kids, then we're listening a little bit. What are they learning about, or what are they not learning about? Right? Making that a conversation so they can go back in a little bit more excited. We can then talk at the dinner table like, oh, I heard the teacher mention this. What do you think? And having those conversations, right? Making it a bit more meaningful. Again, that's hard when we're stretched as thin as we are, right? But these are some of the ways I think we can motivate them. And then also teaching them stuff that's fun if we have time, right? We can teach them math through cooking. We can teach them gardening. We can teach them, about maps by taking nature hikes, again, maybe with younger kids more than older kids. But, then we're getting them interested in learning something, even if it's not the school stuff. We can point out, hey, this is learning too. Cooking is doing math, right? Charting a course is doing math when we go for a hike, right? These other things like that, they start to see it in other places in their life. And it actually becomes more meaningful than probably what they're learning just sitting there on Zoom or Google Classroom or something. But it's
Yeah,
tough.
yeah, it's tough and it's very dry. And I say that you mentioned something that if the dad is working, the mom is working, at least model this for them so that you can
Mhm.
engage them, motivate them by setting a role model. But this is not for everyone. You know that many people lost their jobs, and right now it's
Yeah.
very stressful. However, they
Yeah.
have to stay in there and at the same time motivate and engage their kids at the same time to do the stuff that I would say that they were outsourcing this to the school teachers who are very well equipped to do it, and right now they have to do it themselves. So
Right.
along the process, there's expectations for our kids. All of a sudden, like you have to tell them that, hey, I'm not going to go to school. You're going to sit online, and like I'm not going to see my friends. No, you will see them through Zoom and or like Google, whatever. So, what are their expectations? What are the stuff that they are not saying? And from your practice, what are our kids' expectations from the online thing? And what is the proper message we have to tell them?
Yeah.
We and not to have high expectations and then be demotivated.
Right. Right. I mean, I think, school is disappointing. I think for kids who like the social aspects of school and for kids who like learning, so I think really validating that this is hard, this is tough. I think a lot of us saw, some viral pictures, online in September of kids just, crying, looking at the computer and slumped over. And, I know, my heart was breaking, watching my son log in that first day, and he was so bored and annoyed, like all at once, and sad, right? Really all of it. So talking to them about the fact that this is hard, right? None of us like this. Grown-ups don't like this either. The teachers miss you, and you miss the teachers. Your friends miss you, and you miss your friends, right? Everyone misses being together. And talking also about reminding kids, which also is a good way of reminding ourselves that this actually won't last forever, right? We'll be back to school at some point, probably masks first, and then, we'll see what happens, right? We'll be back to work. Life will get normal. We don't know when, but we do know that it'll happen. So I think that reminds us all, right, that this will be over. And then I think also talking about, like school is boring, but maybe there's stuff you want to learn outside of school, right? That maybe, and again, this depends on how busy we are and whether we have childcare and things like that, but maybe things that we can learn together as a family, right? And then it's not like learning, school is associated with learning, but learning takes place everywhere. And we can make it fun and interesting in some other ways by teaching kids things that they really want to know, or by previewing a little bit of, finding out what the teacher may or may not be doing online, and then previewing, adding kind of enrichment and conversations. But talking about the disappointment about not seeing people, not having clubs, not having activities, that's the main thing I feel like I saw, particularly last spring among teenagers. I didn't have a lot of kids that were anxious or worried about COVID. What I had a lot of were kids that were really sad because, the school play got canceled and the spring concert got canceled and graduation got canceled and their team was in the playoffs for soccer, right? And, the rest of the season was just poof, gone, right? And of course, not seeing their friends for social gatherings. And so, a lot of what I saw with kids was sadness and grief, and kind of talking to them like that, like, this is really sad. This is hard to miss out on these things. We're going to have those things again. We're going to have so much fun when we have those things again, birthday parties and all of it. And I think the last time we talked was right around Eid, right? Parties and celebrations in the community, right? Those will come back, but this is a really sad time. But
Yeah.
there's also other opportunities. We can make new traditions, we can make new rituals, things like that, that might also make it a little bit fun in some ways.
Yeah, and I have to say that it puts some, I would say, different kind of, I wouldn't say pressure, but new approaches on our teachers. And I have to say that school, that's where my kid is, they teach them online. They do an enormous effort and work, and they're very successful in engaging them. So they're
Hmm.
like to engage the kids in a way so that they keep them motivated during the process of the class itself. Because they know that it's boring, so they're trying to go above and beyond so that they go outside the way. So there is a responsibility as well, yes, on the families, on the kids, at the same time on the teachers to engage and do stuff differently online. I would have like they have to go into classes to know how to engage their I would say students online. Now I have a question for you. Um,
Yeah.
you said that your job is to write, so as a matter of fact, you control your time. So you know when to write, when not to write, so that you can do it in parallel with your kids, so that at least you can show if they are online, show that we are role modeling for them. So we're through this together. So what about like others who are lucky? Still, I'm saying it's lucky having a job, having
Yeah.
like back meetings, have back-to-back work, and they're lucky at home. They can't help their kids, and at the end of the day, they are extremely mentally tired and exhausted. So as their kids,
Yeah.
and the level of pressure and tense in the family goes up. So,
Right.
what is one of the practices or advices that we can say to the family member at the same time to take care of their kids?
Yeah. I think this is so hard. I feel so lucky that I'm self-employed, right? I can make my own hours, right? A lot of my work is writing. Some of it actually has to be totally, I got to go to a room by myself and do clinical work and talk to people, right, privately and confidentially. Although occasionally my kids appear, make a cameo in those, right? But again, I can really make my own schedule and make it around the kids' schedule, and my wife's schedule is also pretty flexible. But a lot of folks are, have very demanding managers, have to be in Zoom meetings, not in their own schedule, not that's, around when the kids' meetings are, right? Or have to go in and, work in the workplace, right? At the office, at the store, right? Wherever it might be. And that presents such a different set of challenges. I do think, I see people being somewhat more understanding in terms of managers and bosses about families' needs. But, we live in a culture where, with the amount of unemployment that we see, that people are so anxious about asking for time off or taking time off, right, to manage their kids or find more balance, right? Because we know that there's millions of people unemployed who are going to sign up for that job, right? If we can't do it, or if we have to ask for hours off. So I think this is really, just incredibly hard for so many families, for so many working parents, especially when both parents are working out of the home or in the home, as the case may be, these days. There are still ways, I think, that we can find ways to take a little bit of care of ourselves. My work is divided into Zoom calls, writing, and just regular phone calls. And one of the best ways we can deal with our stress is by getting exercise. I'm not going to the gym on Zoom, I'll tell you that much, right? But some of my phone calls, I try to get out and take a walk for an hour or so. And that actually really makes a difference. So maybe if we have a job where it's, those phone calls or Zoom calls, right, we can do some of that, while we're outside taking a walk, getting some fresh air, right? Also getting a little bit of exercise, things like that as a way of, just alleviating some of that stress. One of the other challenges of living life on Zoom is that we go from one thing to the next to the next. There's no break often between calls. It's actually really hard for kids too online. There's no break where they have 5 minutes in the hallway to chat with their friends or go back to their locker and see people or, be out on the playground with people, right? And same with us and the workplace. We're not sitting around the water cooler or run into people at the coffee station or something, right? We're just working. And so I think it can be helpful to sometimes, again, depending on your relationship with your boss. And I do some consulting to companies about how to do this too, but asking for a little bit of either that social time or saying like, look, we work, can we get 5 minutes between Zoom calls to splash water on our face, walk outside, check in with a friend, something like that, right? These kinds of things that can help us reset. Because, again, we are under so much stress, right? Our bosses are often, really demanding. The ones that have kids get it a little bit, but it's only a few of us that have jobs that, our bosses are understanding and flexible, or that we can take a little bit of time to help our kids or do those other things around the house. But, I'm certainly aware that a lot of people are, on phone calls with work while they're cooking dinner, doing a lot of multitasking, which of course also
Yeah, I've
stresses
seen
us out.
that. We've seen that, and we've seen the sounds of the animals and stuff like that. And this is acceptable because right now we are in their world. We are working from home. So we used to go
Right.
to the office, but this is not happening anymore. And I understand that even the managers are under the same pressure. So the managers are fathers as well, and there's a demand from them to achieve stuff during this tough time. So I
Right.
think this is where compassion has to be exercised and understanding at the same time. So this is where like all the nice quotations about leadership, that all the nice classes about leadership that we used to attend, this is the time that we have to exercise those values of leadership. Is it like compassion, is integrity, and being transparent about the issues at the same time talking about this. While doing that, we expect that there's a level of trust of people working from home, which is like
Hmm.
definitely, if you open a conversation with the managers, they have to be understanding if this is the stage. So I understand that. So one of this, you mentioned very good thing, which exercise, try to get a walk outside and like take a break between like meeting to meeting, at least to think. Now, let's assume that we have done that, and there's some signs that we've witnessed on our kids, and these signs triggers professional help. So, what are
Hmm.
those signs that said, "Hey, those are triggers. We need to seek professional help." So, what are
Yeah.
those signs? If we did
Yeah.
all that, still it's not working.
Right. This is a really hard question, and I think, and I'll explain why. One of the ways that we know that someone is depressed, for example, is that they are isolating, they are not eating, they are not sleeping, they are sitting around in their pajamas all day, right? If I asked you to think of a depressed person, that's what you'd imagine, right? And yet what the pandemic has done is it forced us to sit around in our pajamas all day and eat at weird times and not get good sleep because we're anxious, right? Or because we're working till late hours because we're with the kids all day, right? We see this all the time. So life imitates the depression these days, and then it creates the depression at the same time. And so we see this in ourselves as adults, right? We see it in our kids as well, right? Well, we want them like going out and doing this and that. Well, are they allowed to go out, right? We want them, doing, eating healthy and getting exercise. It's like, well, they can't go to the gym. Soccer, is it happening? Is it not happening? Right? These kinds of things. So, it ends up creating more depression. It ends up creating more anxiety, right? And so, it's hard to know kind of what's what. And in a situation that's so abnormal, it's like, what's the regular worry that we're all feeling about this pandemic, whether it's about our own health, whether it's about our job, whether it's about people that we care about, right? Whether it's, the political situation, right? That's all normal. But then, when does it get to be too much? Right? Same with the depression. There's a lot to be sad about. There's a lot to feel hopeless and helpless about oftentimes. But where it starts to get worrisome is when it starts to really interfere with other stuff. And I think this is also, a place, is interfering with schoolwork. Are they withdrawing even more from the family and friends than usual? Are they coming down for dinner but not eating it, right? Are they sleeping, but are they still really tired? Or are they not sleeping? These kinds of things. And then noticing things like crying or panic attacks, right? Those are more clear external things that we can see. But also, this is where I think community can be really helpful in a lot of ways. And it's nice to be on this show, which is really about community. And I think, we can reach out to our community and say, hey, how are your kids doing with this? School just got pushed back by another week. I know our family's really stressed about it. I know the kids are really sad. How are your kids holding up? Oh, they're, hiding in their room, never coming out. Mine's coming out sometimes, not to make light of it, but, we can kind of get a sense of how other folks are doing. Right. Same with, thinking about how can we still, think through, right. Just, how are you getting your kids motivated? How are you getting them to school? Do you want to have a little Zoom play date, or have the kids meet up or families meet up online after school today or in person? We don't have a lot of health issues. We're lucky, so part of our, Zoom school day was like meeting outside with the other kids on the street, and they'd play in the street during recess, and then everyone go back to their computers again, and they're getting exercise and taking care of themselves. So with the community, right, we can also then get a sense, we don't want to be always comparing ourselves, but like, how is kind of everybody doing? And then we have the resource of school too, right? We can, you can call a professional, talk to the pediatrician. We can also, school can be a really good resource for mental health. I'm worried about my kids. Here's what's going on. Is that what you're seeing from other kids? What's been working for other kids in the building, right? Other kids this age, what tends to help, right? These kinds of things. School can also be a resource, right? The mosque, the community center, that can be a resource, right? As well as the pediatrician, as well as mental health folks. So these are things to think about. And of course, screen time too, right? It's like, we want to, we know that that's the way our kids connect. We also know it's not always the healthiest way to connect. That's a whole conversation. That's a whole episode someday, thinking about kids and screen. But again, that's, kind of finding balance and moderation.
Perfect. So you're like signs of disengagement, signs of like not eating, signs of panic attack. Those are like signs of depression, and those are like triggers that we have to seek help. Now,
Yeah.
let's get back to a message for the teachers. I understand that the teachers are doing a great job right now, and it is the teachers are moms and single moms and like family members, and they have their challenges as well. And at the same time, we have to put all the challenges aside and motivate the kids and do another platform of teaching, which is like Zoom and Google and online, or like teaching with masks and teaching stuff that they didn't teach before. It's
Yeah.
totally new
Not the
world
job
for.
everyone signed up for, right?
I hear you. I hear you, Dr. Chris. So my point is the level of discipline we have to maintain in the online should be revisited. There should be
Yeah.
a room for the kids to vent, I would say, because sometimes we don't allow that. So there is a message here so that the mental wellness to be balanced with the level of education at the same time. So what message you would like to say to our wonderful, amazing teachers?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to the teachers. I know teachers have been getting, I've got so many friends that are teachers. Teachers have been getting a lot of grief over the course of the summer. When are you going back? Why are you going back this way? Where's my kids' work? There's too much work. There's not enough. More online, less online, right? It's been awful for teachers. And so if no one's thanked you today, I want to say thank you. And we were talking actually before the show started. My son just went back to school yesterday. and for the first time in person, and all the parents were outside, lined up with the teachers, and the bell rang, and the parents just let out a big cheer, right? And I know it was, partly just like that the kids were back in school, but that cheer was for the parents, excuse me, for the teachers too, who are out there on the front lines doing this work. And I think just to expect that it's going to be a while before things settle. Kids are getting used to whether it's doing school online and the new kinds of discipline that need to go with that. I think in some ways, some of this stuff, when kids go back in person, which I know is scary for folks, right? I think that may actually be really helpful for kids. They're going to be smaller classes. Kids are going to have to be really disciplined by sitting at their desks and, facing forward, and a lot fewer distractions. And in some ways, I think that might actually be really helpful for kids. There might be some opportunities. Some kids might really thrive in that kind of environment. As some kids actually are thriving online, although, mostly kids I've spoken to are struggling. So I think knowing that kids are going to be coming back from this time, without a lot of structure, and they're going to buckle against some of that new structure again. But in the end, I think they're going to be relieved that they have that structure. They're going to be saying, I don't want to be online. I don't want to be on Zoom or in person back with teachers. But they're actually, they'll be saying that, but they're going to be so happy to actually see you, even if it's online. And for you just to
Yeah.
be that caring adult showing up for them sends such a powerful message, whether it's showing up online or whether it's showing up in person. And they will start to settle down. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time till everyone's back on the same page with what this new kind of interim normal is, before we have a vaccine or some good treatments or something else happens.
And I would second what you're saying. That I would like to say thank you for all the teachers that are doing this job, either like on campus at schools or like online. It's not. We understand that it's tough. We've seen it ourselves. We've never been exposed to that. But thank you very much for that. So, Chris, before leaving you to go, and I'd like to ask you a question. Do you think your book Child Mind will help the parents, or Growing Up Mindful? Which one to read right now so that they at least knows how to motivate their kids and some tools and tactics? Which book of that?
Yeah, Growing Up Mindful's got a lot of great skills for how to raise more resilient kids and also how to manage your own stress during this time. The best possible thing that you can really do to have your kids be a little bit more well regulated and less stressed out is actually really to take good care of yourself, to manage your own stress in this time. So Growing Up Mindful's got a lot of great tips about that, as well as some of my other books too, and they can be a lot of fun for kids. So please just take, good care of yourself. That's really the best thing that you can do for your kids. And Growing Up Mindful's got a lot of tips for parents, for kids, and for families to do together. So yeah, thanks for the plug there.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And may I ask the producer, Brothers Gray, if you can put the link for the book Growing Up Mindful for the people to know how to get this book, please do that. With that being said, thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate having you. Every time I have you, I have this positive energy that everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be okay. Yeah, and I'm very hopeful that to hear it from an expert like yourself, taking care of yourself. I really appreciate the time spending us with us today. And you mentioned something that I might need to have you for another session, which is the screen time and how to make it productive and be efficient. But you should come to my home and see my kids and my wife how they treat time. Okay, thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate that. Looking forward to see you
Thank
again.
you for having me. So good to see
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you.